Hi, everyone, and thank you for coming. We're happy to introduce Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton today, who is in her 15th term as the Congresswoman for the District of Columbia. Congresswoman Norton is also the chair of the House Subcommittee on Highways and Transit and serves on the Committee on Oversight and Reform, as well as the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure. Congresswoman Norton is with us as part of her Norton in Your Neighborhood series, and we'll be discussing her federal work. And I believe we'll also be taking some questions from you all after her discussion tonight. On behalf of Commission 2C, I am Ellie Miskey, and we also have Commissioners Michael Schenkel and Gigi Nelson. We want to thank you for being here with us tonight. And if you'd like to start there, that would be great.
Thank you. Are you ready for me?
Yeah.
All right. First off, I'm so pleased to be with ANC2C, and we'll of course be happy to take your questions. There's a lot to report. The first thing I ought to report on is DC statehood, because yesterday we had a very successful hearing. We now have 213 co-sponsors. That's almost enough to pass. You know, we passed it in June. But the big and new news is that 54% of the American people now support DC statehood. That's the effect of these hearings. They have told people what they don't know. These hearings, when they learned, and the poll tested, it's called Data for Progress, it tested various arguments. When the argument taxation without representation was used, that is to say that the district paid taxes without representation, 58% agreed that the district should be made a state, and even 42% of Republicans, when you said that we pay taxes. They tried this out in many different ways, and what they found in this poll was that the majority of both, that DC statehood is supported by the majority of both men and women, college and non-educated voters, younger and older voters, and Black and white voters. Along with the 57% of the American people that support DC statehood. I hope you agree that on DC statehood, we're making very significant progress. The reason we're had another hearing, even though we passed it in June, is that we found that it was the hearings that educated people about what they did not know. So it is almost never that a bill passes, particularly the Senate, after 1 year, one session. The more we air DC statehood and what it means for residents of the District of Columbia, the higher the margin grows. Now at 54%, I think we are very close to getting where we need to get. We have strong support from the majority leader, from the Speaker of the House. 115 national organizations are spreading the word. We're getting all of that help. We recognize that the filibuster is there, but the filibuster seems to be on its last legs. The Senate was late in organizing because of the filibuster. We've gotten rid of the filibuster for everything except legislation. You can't do it with judges. You just can't do it for anything else. So we believe that the filibuster is going, and that's not because of DC statehood, but because legislation does not pass any longer in the Senate because of the filibuster. With Democrats in charge, with a Democratic House, Senate, and presidency, all of that is good for statehood. It's good for the United States of America. I'm going to go on to something that my constituents have all written me about, and that's the Capitol, which has been locked up. You may know that I have a bill, Don't Fence the Capitol In bill, and I can tell you that I have made progress on this bill. My bill is going to be passed for sure. It has Republican and Democratic support in the House and the Senate. I even had a Republican senator to call and ask me if he could be the lead in the Senate on the Capitol fencing. Fortunately, I had a Democratic lead, Chris Van Hollen, so I said he could be perhaps a co-lead with Chris Van Hollen. The Capitol reports that there is no credible threat on the Capitol. The fencing is coming down, and by the end of March, most of it will be down. I met with President Biden, along with Transportation Secretary Buttigieg. That's very important because the reason I got to meet with the president is because I'm chair of the subcommittee on transportation and infrastructure. It shows you the priority he puts on infrastructure, that this was one of his first meetings. I mean, this meeting occurred on March the 4th. All of us in the meeting, and it was the leadership of the committee. You know, I vote in committee. I vote on everything except that final vote on the House floor. The leadership of the committee met with him. The president has a priority for transportation and infrastructure, which is why he met with us so early. And of course, part of that priority is climate change, because climate-friendly transit options are a large part of why this bill is important to him. In the meeting, each of us was tasked to speak on something. I spoke on transit. I think they asked me to speak on that because the district is the district and this region is a leading transportation hub for transit. So I spoke about transit investments as part of the COVID-19 economic recovery. I talked about how transit is keeping cars off the road. I talked, of course, about the importance of Metro and Amtrak. You know that we are the hub for Amtrak as well. So finally, let me go to some of the things that have passed that you might be interested in. I have been given senatorial courtesy by the president. For us, that is very important. Obviously, we have no senators, but when Democrats are in power, I have been able to get senatorial courtesy for the appointment of judges. The U.S. attorney is so important for us. All judicial nominations, the Superior Court, and I have already recommended judges to the president. In that way, we are treated completely equally. We're going through a process called reconciliation, which means that you don't have to go through the House and the Senate. You can pass a bill with one bill. Our transportation bill went through that with Metro and Amtrak in it, so that money is on its way. Also, a lot of money for the residents of the District of Columbia. I was able to get $2.2 billion for the District of Columbia. Everything I asked for, including $755 million retroactively that we lost in the whole old CARES Act when the district was treated as a territory. We are never treated as a territory because we pay federal income taxes. I recovered that money in addition to the $2.2 billion, as I indicated, we got. We are funded, by the way, in this new bill for state, city, and county. That means we got not just money for DC as a city, but as a state and a county, because we in the district provide services at all three levels. The reconciliation bill cannot be filibustered in the city, in the Senate, and it requires only a majority. That's why we were able to do so well there. Let me see. I've got the here's something I've been working on forever. The Memorial Bridge, and it's finally fixed. It's the road that connects Arlington Cemetery and Northern Virginia, the Lincoln Memorial. It's important for tourism. It's open. DC Tag, that is maybe the most popular bill I've ever passed. It allows our youngsters to go to any state-supported college or university in the United States. Our young people at low in-state tuition cost. Our students are going to college in all 50 states. That's very important for the District of Columbia because you need at least some college, 2, 4, but certainly some college in order to get a decent job in this city or this region. Well, that was a fast once over of some of what I've been doing in the House. I do regret that I was not able, something happened. I was by myself, there was no staff, so I was not able, as hard as I tried, to get on Zoom, but I'm certainly open to any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman Norton, and thank you for your work. That all sounds great, and we are so happy to have you representing this city. I do see one question in the chat regarding the fencing that we could start with, and then if folks want to either put their question in the chat or raise their hand, that would be great. So the first question is, why does there need to be a bill to remove the fences? Isn't congressional leadership responsible for their placement, for its placement?
That's an excellent question. The reason, actually, technically, you can remove the fence now, but it's not just removing the fence. There will be a retractable fence, an underground fence, that has to be paid for. There's a need for 350 more Capitol Police, that has to be paid for. So that money is for that reason, that there are some expenses, and fortunately there are Republicans who want the fence down as well. So I believe that money will be forthcoming.
Great, thank you. I'm gonna go in the order I think I saw hands go up, so I think you are first, if you want to unmute yourself. Or Ratansh Hans, yes. Hi, nice to see you again.
Nice to see you again too. Quick question. So as I'm sure you know, the Biden administration is looking for political appointees to serve under him. What advice do you have for a fellow DC resident that might be interested in being appointed? I understand that DC residents, are really underrepresented in a lot of administrations. So any advice or help would be appreciated.
Well, if there's anybody who wants to be appointed, if you send your credentials to me, I will forward them to the White House.
Oh, okay. Email that's best.
And indicate the kind of position you're searching for.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Congresswoman. That's incredibly kind of you. And then Michael Seraphin, I think you were next.
Yes, can you hear me, Congresswoman Norton?
I can.
Okay. Hi, my name is Michael Seraphin. I wanted to first thank you for taking the time to meet with us today and for representing us in the district. My question pertains to COVID vaccination. And if I look at the Washington Post website about the current status of vaccination rollout across all 50 states, including territories and the district, it's very clear that DC is third from last in terms of vaccination rollout and has a similar poor performance as it pertains to using the vaccine that it has on hand. So it's pretty clear to me, seeing the data, that we're not short on vaccine, but we're doing a poor job of deploying the vaccine compared to other states. And this is also with the knowledge that Mayor Bowser has vaccinated residents of other states, other residents of other states that work in the district, and those folks are all eligible to get vaccinated in their home state. So my question is, as a resident of DC, a taxpayer in DC, how are we going to do better vaccinating people, and when are we going to lift the artificial and or self-imposed restrictions regarding demographics and zip codes that other states have already lifted, so that we can get vaccinated, those that are interested and eligible to get vaccinated, rather than have to wait until some point in time when these zip code or demographic restrictions are lifted. Thank you very much, and thank you for your time and consideration.
Well, this is a very important question, although you're directing it to your Congresswoman, when it's really has to be directed to the district and to your mayor. I can tell you this, that the district has been lagging very badly. If you look at the post today, it offers an explanation having to do with not being at the bottom, that it's also been vaccinating people who come in to the district, people who work, who work in the district. As I understand it, those jurisdictions are paying the district back the serum. But that question is not for the Congress. It is a local home rule question. And I suggest that for further details, you write either your at-large council member or your own council member.
Okay, thank you. I'm aware of that. I'm also aware that you carry a fair amount of influence here. So is there any opportunity for you to influence this?
It really isn't. I wish I could, but it's all in the hands of the district. My job was to get the money to the district and to make sure the district had access to vaccine. But it is a home rule issue as to how they then go about distributing. No member of Congress has any authority there.
Okay, thank you, Congresswoman. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Congresswoman. And yes, we're happy to bring those up at our monthly meetings as well, where we do have representatives from both the mayor's office and from our council members. So thank you, Michael, for that question. I'm going to go to Gigi. I believe your hand was up, and then we have a few questions in the chat. I'll start moving to those after your question, Commissioner.
Thank you, Ellie. Hello, Congresswoman Norton, and welcome to ANC2C. This is Commissioner Gigi Nelson. First, I did want to let you know that I thoroughly enjoyed the Black History Month event last month, where the discussion on the history behind DC's most influential Black landmarks and institutions was really, really interesting. So thank you for putting that on.
Terrific.
My question is a little bit more, local. Part of the area that we represent, obviously, is Chinatown. And so given that DC's Chinatown has sort of been on the decrease for a while now, and with the economic disruption this past year has brought, in addition to the rise of anti-Asian sentiment, I'm just curious if you know if there are any ways in particular that the government at the federal level is assisting with, our Asian American businesses. I know it's more of a local thing, but I was just curious about the federal level.
Well, at the federal, I'm not sure there's any legislation. We are up in arms about what has happened. I have not heard, I don't know if you've heard of any anti-Asian activity in the district.
There have been reports locally of people being, pushed and things like that. I have heard that. and
Yeah.
just verbally, but nothing. I mean, not serious, obviously, but it hasn't gotten to the level of violence that other people have experienced.
Yes, because I hadn't read anything of that. And of course, that again is a DC issue.
Right.
Who is the council member who represents Chinatown?
That would be Congress, or not Congress, but Council Member Brooke Pinto.
Yeah, I would be in touch with her to be on the watch so that we don't have any such outrage as that in the district.
Okay, thank you.
So moving on to the questions in the chat, we have one from William Klein. I'm just going to read the questions as they are in the chat. And his question is, in the hearings yesterday, the subject of federal money given to states came up. And if I heard right, many states get much more than DC. There is a myth that we depend on federal payments because of the government on our territory. Were those numbers total or per capita? And should we attack the idea that only DC gets mountains of federal money versus many other states?
Well, the district gets less money than many other states. We get money only for federal facilities. That was a red herring brought up by the Republicans. We are reimbursed for any federal agencies or federal, we don't pay for anything federal in the District of Columbia. And quiet as it's kept, the district is a whole lot more than, federal buildings. So we are given money to deal with federal agencies, but we have, but we are not the most in the United States. We are not the jurisdiction that gets the most in the United States.
Thank you. Moving on to the next question. We have 3 here left in the chat right now. So a question from Jason, and that is there any chance DC statehood will require a constitutional amendment? And how can people who support DC statehood donate funds to the nationwide public service messaging on DC statehood?
Only if you're a Republican will you argue that. Every state that has come into the Union has come in by majority vote. To be sure, the district was created by the federal government as a separate jurisdiction. However, there is nothing in the background of the creation of the district that would argue that if it became a state, it would take something special other than the Congress of the United States doing precisely what it does when any state comes into the Union. So that's a red herring from the Republicans.
Great, thank you. And just for the second part of that, are you aware of any campaigns or organizations specifically that folks could look out to support if they want to help the cause for DC statehood nationwide?
Yeah, I would go to DC Vote. DC Vote has itself and all the other organizations that work with it.
Perfect, thank you. So we have 2 questions here from David Rosenberg. The first is, a Washington Post article mentioned childcare as a part of the upcoming infrastructure bill, but provided no details. With daycare costing $20,000 to $30,000 per year for one child in DC, the costs are a huge problem. Can you give us any more details about that?
It was not in the infrastructure bill. It was in the COVID bill that just passed. There was childcare money in that bill. That is the American Rescue Act.
Great, thank you. And the second question from Mr. Rosenberg is, my understanding is that the DC TAG caps at $10,000 per student per year. This doesn't go as far as it used to. For example, UMD, University of Maryland, cost about $20,000 for in-state, but $53,000 for out-of-state. Are there efforts to raise the max on DC TAG?
Very good question. Yes, I'm trying to raise it. DC TAG has taken people a long way In fact, it's $10,000 per semester, per year, I'm sorry. Most state colleges are still within that range. But as the caller indicates, some cost more than that. Still, getting that $10,000 has been very helpful. I'm trying to get it raised to at least $15,000.
That's great.
I don't think I can get it raised much above that, but I'm going to try with that with this next bill.
That's great. Thank you. We have another question from Harold Kloster, and that is, in the aftermath of the Georgia and Colorado mass killings, what is the likelihood of Congress finally passing meaningful gun control legislation? What can we...
I believe a gun control bill passed today. Gun legislation passed today in the House of Representatives.
Thank you.
That's my recommendation.
Thank you. And there's just a second part of that, and that's what can we as residents of the district do, I assume, to support that, that effort on gun control?
Well, it's going to have a hard time in the Senate. So if, as I believe, it actually passed today, I'm not sure there's much that people who live in the district can do because we don't have any senators.
Right. That makes sense. Thank you. And then I think there's just one more in the chat right now, and that is from Carol A. Thornton. And that is regarding the public transit options in a post-COVID world where ridership is depressed, have ways of funding and subsidizing ridership to encourage the use of mass transit availability and access been discussed while making up budget shortfalls?
Ways of doing what?
Ways of funding or subsidizing ridership to encourage the use of mass transit.
Yeah, the latest bill takes account of the fact if you go out in the street today in the district, you'll see buses with almost nobody in it, and yet they've been running. The same with the subways. So in the bill we've just passed, there is money in there for transit.
Thank you. I'll just take a minute to see, because those are all the questions I see in the chat and I don't see any hands up. Are there any other questions from the audience at this point? Oh, we have one more here. And that is, what advice do you have for young people interested in running for office?
Oh, well, my advice would be to get involved with your ANC, like ANC 2C. In other words, usually to run for office, you have to make a name for yourself in doing some work at the local level. Then people get to know your name and get to know your work. And that's what I would. I didn't do it that way. I had been a federal official, so my name was better known that way. I was chair of the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. But that's not how most people run for office. I think if you look at the council today, you will see that most of them, besides doing the very hard work of going door to door, have been involved, for example, at the ANC level. People get to know you by seeing that you're willing to work at the lowest possible level and then rise because of that work.
Thank you for that. So one last call. I wanted to see if there are any other questions for Congresswoman Norton. Okay, I don't see any. So Congresswoman Norton, again, thank you so much. We really appreciate you taking this time to speak with us. It's a great opportunity, and we appreciate all the work that you've done and that you're doing to help the district.
Well, let me say that ANC 2C asked residents asked very good questions. I hope you've done your homework before this meeting. I just regret that because of whatever technical difficulties, I couldn't get on Zoom with you. But I have staff on with me. If there are any more questions, please email me and we'll get back to you. I have enjoyed your questions and I've enjoyed talking with you, and I very much appreciate your having me. Please have me again.
We would love to. We definitely will. And I'll just note for everyone on the call that Caitlin Brown, who was with Congresswoman Norton, went ahead and put a phone number and email contact in the chat. So take that down if you'd like before we end this call. So thank you again. And thank you everyone for coming. We hope you stay engaged and bring some of these issues at our monthly meetings as well. And thank you again, Congresswoman Norton. And
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.